everybody. Hopefully you were able to join us for part one of Phil's video and podcast interview. He had some great insight there as far as mindset and how your fitness really helps with your mental toughness, because if you're physically fit, you've had to mentally be tough on yourself in order to get that way. He also talked about how to handle negative people and so much more. So if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to episode 1 with Phil, and I hope you enjoy part 2 with him.
We let too many things become overwhelming. It's like working out. As soon as you say the word workout, somebody thinks about sweating, being sore, being miserable. Well, I mean, you can make it that way depending on how hard you want to push yourself, but it doesn't have to be that way. Right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and so that's, I think, what people need to, it's the same way with training horses. To a lot of people, it's overwhelming. It's a simple program. Anybody, Becky knows. I mean, Becky could teach my program. Anybody can learn my program. But along with that comes, what's your mindset? What kind of energy are you putting off? What kind of vibe, just like you were saying, Destri, what kind of vibe are you putting out there? You know, I I hate being around people that are negative. I'll tolerate it for a little bit, but pretty soon I'm going to need to go make a phone call or something. I mean, and if it offends them, I don't even care, because really I don't want them back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I've got some good friends that are negative, but I got to take it in
Mm-hmm.
small pieces, and we all can drift there. We all can drift into that hole easy. But awareness is everything. You got to be aware of what you're doing, what you're letting yourself be surrounded with, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, simple. It's really those things that, like, we know we need to do. They're really easy to do, but the catch is they're really easy not to do. Yeah,
And people do get overwhelmed if you don't keep it simple. And you can still
yeah,
keep it simple and have great results. And however hard you work at those simple things, whether, we identify a weakness and a restriction. And if you work really hard at those, that's going to get exponentially better. Just like if you are training your horse and you keep putting a few simple buttons on them. Well, if you're putting that great foundation on them, the harder you work at that foundation, the greater that horse is going to be when you ask it to do anything in the arena. And so you can still keep it simple and really go to a high place.
yeah. It's not about what you do on day one. What are you doing on day 365? What are you doing 5 years from now? When you talk about, on the business side of it, with the marketing and brand building on the business side of it in our mentorships, what's your 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year plan? Okay. Well, it's a lot of times someone will be able to give me that with their business, but then I say, okay, what's your 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan with your training? You know, with your personal development, with your marketing, your brand building, where, because it's all got to tie together, right? It's all got to tie together. You need, and from there, just like you said, added, for me, the spiritual side adds to that, but I kind of include that in my personal development. You know, just what kind of a person am I? Because I heard you know I heard a great saying one time, and I wish I could remember where I read it or heard it. Um, but the guy said, they may not remember what you tell them, what you teach them, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you're dealing with, and it goes back to hope. People need to believe it can happen. People need to believe they can do it. There's so much information out there that it's overwhelming. There's, you know, social media, the internet, it's wonderful. Just like today, we can do a meeting that without it would be very difficult, really, to get everybody's schedules together, and a huge commitment. But at the same time, it also works against what you're doing, what I'm doing, because there's so many people, and we all provide all kinds of free information, but it's just one piece of the recipe. So a lot of people get a nugget here, a nugget there, but they don't get the results. So then they get frustrated, overwhelmed, and so a big thing is develop a program, keep it simple, just like you said, keep it simple. I mean, if you're going to do 10 sit-ups, that doesn't seem like a lot, but if you do it for a year, that's 3,650 sit-ups. Are you going to be better at the end of the year than you started if you do 3,650 sit-ups? I guarantee you will, because you've committed and you've stayed with something that, I mean, it takes literally 25 seconds to do 10 sit-ups, right? So I think, in what you're doing and what I'm doing, I think it's so important that people understand that. The value of that, the value of something, because we're either doing this, we're either growing or dying. Like today, if I just take the day off and I don't do anything but ice my knee, which here lately I've been doing a bunch of that, it's hard to think, well, I'm not getting anything done. Well, yeah, I am. I'm getting a new knee and I'm getting it ready, so I'm still progressing, but it's not doing the things I want to do. But sometimes it's just those small things, and understand we're either growing or dying. It's a small window. We're here for a short time. Swing for the stinking fences. Why not?
I'm kidding.
Why
And
not?
I think if you're working to improve yourself instead of prove yourself to people, because you can't change what people think. So if you just work on improving yourself, that proof in what you're doing is going to come out all of its own. You can't just wear yourself out trying to prove yourself to people. So if you're working to improve yourself every day and not prove yourself, and you're working to serve others, then you're going to be living a really great life, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know that you can say it any better than that.
Yeah.
That's something that, and it goes back to the education part of it. And you all are in the same business I am. It's teaching and communicating and educating, and people, when they understand that, yeah, because trying to prove, when you're trying to prove yourself, it's like anything you do, that the only time you're happy is when it's perfect. Well, if you're the type person that the only time you're happy is when it's perfect, you're not going to be any fun to be around. You will suck to be around. I promise you. It will not be any fun. And I'm sure there were times when I was that person. I can honestly say that. So, but understanding that's the key, just like you were saying, just progress, improve. Let's get a little bit better.
Phil, you guys are rolling out, or you've talked about your certification program. Have you guys ironed out some details that you'd like to share on that yet? I'm pretty excited to hear about that.
Yeah, the certification program is kind of like the mentorship weeks. It just kind of developed on its own from people that have been to multiple clinics and been through the mentorship week programs. And so we just felt like we owed it to those people that want to take what they're doing to a whole nother level to provide a certification program. And we don't have the the hard details worked out on it yet. We're working on it right now, but that is something that in the near future is going to be available to where somebody that wants to spend, a year or 2 or 3 working towards that certification can do it in segments, and it will be based on an accumulation of hours of application, not just knowledge, not just classroom, but application. Because let's face it, in any service industry, knowledge without application is worthless. You can have all the knowledge in the world, and if you don't know how to apply it, and you're not really good at application, and you can't teach the application, the knowledge you have is worthless, right? Because let's face it, there's a lot of that going on. So our certification will not be easy to attain, but because of that, when you get it, it'll be worth something. It's not, you're gonna earn it. But once you've done that, you'll have had those application hours on the training side. You'll have those application hours through the personal development, the business side, and there's also going to be a certification for the clinician side so that you're ready to go teach. Because, and Emma and I were talking about this the other day, there's going to come a time where she may want to do what I'm doing and serve a niche, and she'd be good at it. Emma speaks really well. Emma's a good interview. She's fun to have a conversation with. Her and I do that quite often. And, so it doesn't, but at the same time, it will be their program. It'll be part of their resume, but it's their program. So, because I think it's, a Phil Haugen Horsemanship clinic is always going to be a Phil Haugen Horsemanship clinic, because it's me sharing my experiences. And I really wouldn't want to certify somebody and then think that they want to be conducting business under my name to that degree. They need to you're building your own brand, because you're going to do it differently. Doesn't mean it might be 10 times better than what I'm teaching. And I hope it will be. So we're excited about that. We're taking our time and making sure we take a good look at all of it, and try not to make it, try to keep it simple, but at the same time, it will be kind of equivalent to somebody going to a trade school. Where you focus on that trade. It's an intense program, but when you leave, you got something. Because a certification, a trade school, a program like what you can put together for somebody, it's all about what? Like you said it earlier, Destri, building confidence. Being able to walk the walk. Talk is cheap. Talk's cheap. Show me. I can sit here and tell somebody what I can do. They don't really care. Show me. They want to see it. Right. And when you have, and when you can help somebody get to that point, that's pretty rewarding. The payback in our industry, we all need to pay our bills. We all have, I don't know about you all, but every time I make some money, there's somebody standing with their hand open with an invoice for something. But the payback is when you're working with that person and you've changed their life.
Yeah.
Because like in your business, really and truly, everybody you work with that will do what you tell them to do, you're going to change their life. I mean,
it's so rewarding. It's so rewarding to run into those people and they're like, hey, we did this, or, I'm really not having any pain. I went and I was able to go walking with my daughter, or, and those things, that is amazing. Or they were able to get on their horse and ride, and they hadn't been able to, or they were able to ride a bucking horse, their horse jumped sideways and bucked, and they were able to stick with them. And I mean, all those things are just amazing. And it really fills up my bucket. It helps me, like, ensure me that I'm on the right path to help people, to serve people the way I need to.
Yeah, it's the payback. It's the payback. I mean,
yeah,
it's just like, I love doing clinics, and I mean, we've known each other for a good while, and I love the people. Like, I get to work with great people.
Mm-hmm.
Do I love traveling? Do I love airports? No, I do not. I love traveling, but that a lot of times I'm by myself. Well, I'm always by myself, and it's there's just a lot of lonely nights when you do what I do. I mean, you're either staring at the ceiling of your trailer, or you're looking at a motel room wall, and you're thinking, is this really worth it? But then when I get to the clinic, it's like, yeah, this is why I do it. Right. That's the payback. If it was just the money, what you make for, I can go make that. I can never pull out of my driveway and make that. I can stay right here and do that, doing other things. So sorry, Destri, I interrupted you.
No, you're good. I think just giving people hope that there is, like, you don't have to just live in pain and get up every day and expect to hurt. And I think that's been the biggest reward for me, is just showing people a way that it is possible to be your best where you're at. And, your back doesn't have to hurt, or, your shoulder or whatever. Like, and then setting, with any of my patients, setting those goals of, all right, so what do you want to get back to? What level, and then setting little goals along the way to build their confidence, because rehab is not just physical, it's mental too. And you got to tell them, like, look, once we get to this, then we can do this, and just take it to another level every time. And you keep it simple, because like with your knee surgery, in the protocol, you can only do certain things in those weeks of the protocol. But if you do them and you work hard at them, you're building the foundation for the next step. And you just got to tell yourself, all right, if I do these things and I work at them really hard, then that's either going to speed up my process or prepare me for the next level to the highest extent that I can do it. And then watching those people go on and compete after they've made a full recovery is just the most rewarding thing about this job to me. And then, not only having them go back to competition, but then being like, man, I don't remember the last time that I could compete like this, or I don't know that I've ever competed like this. And getting that type of feedback that's just the icing on the cake at that point.
Yeah, the serving other, the giving back, the opportunity to help others and give back. I just don't know that you could put a value on it. Because it's such a, it's like helping somebody with their horse, and any responses we're getting from our horse start right here. Right? Because if you don't like what your horse is doing, then you got to figure out what you're doing to cause it. Plain and simple. I mean, that's the black and there's no gray area there. Well, when you do that with people, and they figure that out, and you not only help them solve a challenge, just like with what you're doing, but mentally the change is huge. It's just like us. If we know we've put in the preparation, we're going to be, the way we feel and the way we approach everything and the way we deal with people, totally different. When it's just like with somebody that you help, that can do something that they previously couldn't do, you know what happens? They start believing they can do other things.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And just like you said, it gives them hope.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And there's no substitute for experience. And I'm not going to sit up here and say that I've fixed everyone that I touch or my program's perfect the first time that I give it to somebody. No, that you learn way more by the stuff that goes wrong. But if you just have a good mind about it and you don't let it get you down and defeat you, and you just learn from it and then go to find another way. I mean, I don't know how many people I'll be working on, and man, it's just not getting where I need it to get. And then, but all of the stuff that I've done over the years, okay, I've seen this not, all right, maybe it's this. And just having another place to go to that can help you get through that problem or help you get through that injury and then get it fixed. That's where, like you talked about, applying the knowledge. I mean, learning all that stuff, you can learn a ton of stuff doing your personal development and developing your skills. But if you don't know how or when to apply it, and have just another thing, have some feel and have feel for what you're doing, of like, ooh, maybe it really isn't, maybe this really isn't causing it. There's another underlying issue that I haven't found yet. And then being willing to accept that, like, hey, I was wrong the first time. We're going to dig a little deeper and reassess. I mean, that keeps you humble in the job too.
Yeah, you know, we're going to learn what we learn, like you said, we learn way more from our challenges and failures. You know, like when I'm writing in my gratitude journal every morning, one of the things I write is I'm truly grateful for the challenges and the opportunities that will present itself today, because you're going to get both. And really, if you're going to get the opportunity, you got to face the challenge. You know, they're both coming. The challenges are guaranteed. You know, nobody's perfect. You know, we got to be able to pivot. We've got to be able to go, okay, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? You know, I always talk about this with horses. You got to understand the why. Why is this working, or why is this not working? If you understand the why, you know, we can solve a lot of challenges. You know, but there's always, you know, it's just like if you're working with somebody and some specific exercise or you know, program is not working, well, that's an opportunity to learn. It's opportunity to go, okay, why? Well, okay, pivot and let's try something else. It's just part of the game. But here again, that goes back to our thoughts. You know, mentally, you can do one or two things. You can learn from that, or you can beat yourself up for failing.
Mm-hmm.
Quicker the failures come, the faster the progression comes.
Yeah.
You can't be scared forward. You can't be scared of challenging. You can't be scared to do hard things, because if you're asking yourself to go to a new level, you can't get there without challenge or doing something that's hard. And just like you're training a muscle, if you don't work that muscle hard, it's not going to get stronger or better. And it's the same way with your personal development.
Yeah. You know, if we just stay comfortable with being uncomfortable, God, you'll progress. I mean, just be okay with being uncomfortable. And I still, to this day, and I mean, I teach it, I still to this day catch myself thinking about something that I know is going to be uncomfortable and basically negotiating with myself, should I or shouldn't I? And then I'll wake up and go, hey, idiot, let's go. You know, get uncomfortable, you know, because you hang around long enough and, you know, you still drift back to that mindset of, you know, okay, when do the challenges and failures kind of let up? Never. The answer is never, right? You know, because you think, well, I do I deserve this? You know, I've survived this long. Do I deserve this? Yeah. They never let up, right? So I still to this day catch myself, okay, this is going to be uncomfortable. And I'll catch myself negotiating with myself. Do I want to do it? Don't I want to do it? And then I'll wake up and go, dude, let's go. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's a thing. That's a thing for everybody.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Phil, I had one more question that I want to ask you. I know we've been talking for quite a while, but so how you train a horse. You started a horse for us last year, a couple years ago, and he had such a handle on him, and there was such a difference in how you had started him versus when I've had other colt starters. How did you develop like the philosophy of those buttons needed to be on that horse? He needed to be able to do certain things. Um, how did you come to that training philosophy? And then I also know that you're doing a colt starting mentorship this fall. And, like, I'm so excited that you're going to teach that to others, or I hope that's part of the colt starting mentorship. So if you can dive into that a little bit more, I'd love to hear that philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question because we all go through it. Everybody goes through that same journey, and the way I got to where my program is today is through a lot of challenges and failures, and basically living that life of manipulation versus training the horse's mind to think. You know, like now to me, it's so crystal clear because the things I tried before that didn't work that I thought should have worked proved to me, I started to figure out the why. And so now when I'm training a horse, it's real simple. You've got a horse. The body is 5 body parts: head, neck, shoulders, rib cage, and hindquarters. You know, one mind, 5 body parts, 2 thought processes. A horse's mind it's like a light switch. They're either thinking or reacting. It really and truly, and this is just my own term, but really and truly, you're dealing with an animal that is extremely bipolar, depending on what thought process they're in, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I went from really the change came from having the mindset for myself of manipulating their body to do what I wanted it to do, to getting their mind to understand what I'm asking for and letting them find the answer, and then being able to reward them. And and you know that was a process, but it changed overnight when I had one of those aha moments where I started to understand. I started reading my horse and listening to them more than me trying to just implement what I wanted done with them. And because here's the problem with horses that really messes us up is we can manipulate them around and get some pretty good results at times.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, we stay with that. And we're smart people. We have developed a lot of gimmicks, right, to manipulate. I mean, there's a lot of gimmicks out there to manipulate, and I'm not dogging gimmicks. I mean, I used them. I was pretty good at inventing them myself, right? I lived in that era, right, of gimmicks. And and when we had horses, we had a lot of success on that. They were basically trained manually, manual manipulation. But now here's what I think is going to happen in our industry. I don't think it's going to be long before the really good colt starters are by far the highest paid trainer in the food chain on the training process. And really and truly it should be.
I agree.
The mentorship week this fall for the colt starting mentorship, here again, that was, I did not plan on doing that, but I kept getting these requests from people that wanted me to, they'd say, I've quit taking customer horses for the most part. And they'd say, would I take one, or who would I refer them to? And I'll be honest with you, I don't have anybody to refer anybody to. I just don't. And the ones out there, and there's a bunch out there that are good that I don't know about, right? Because when you're a really good colt starter, it's basically like you live under a rock. You never leave home. You're out there grinding every day. Really and truly, the only people that know about you are your customers. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of them won't tell anybody.
Yeah.
A lot of them won't, because they're afraid they're going to lose their spot. Right. Because you can only get through so many in a year. So the colt starting mentorship, and that also added to the certification program. It is a needed program in our industry, because even for somebody, like, there will be people at the colt starting mentorship, Becky, that probably will never and probably shouldn't ever put the first ride on a colt, but they still need to understand the process so they can go forward with it. Right? Because we can do a lot. I mean, I can be 80 years old and I can still work a colt on the ground and have them ready for the first ride. Easy. As long as I can still walk. Easy. But it's all about understanding that horse's thought process, how to communicate with them through their thoughts, right? It's the same thing we're doing with our customers. You're doing with your customers. You're just trying to affect their thoughts. If you can affect the way they think, they'll implement your program.
Right.
100%. So that's a short version of it, but yeah, in a nutshell.
Well, I've even thought about it for myself, because we're raising colts, and no, I don't want to put the first rides on them, but I know there's things that I can do to get them ready for the colt starter, that if I do it in a positive manner, that I can help the process, but not wanting to make things worse. So,
Right.
it's something that is interesting to me for sure, especially raising some young horses.
Yeah, and I worked with one producer this spring, right there. I think it was first part of June, and I'm working with one this fall, and going to do a private event at their place, just like what you were saying, so they can understand the process. And really, you have to understand the process so you can choose your colt starter.
Yeah.
And the colt starting is, I mean, that's the most, I mean, that is, I'm not going to say it's the most important part of the training process, but you could argue that it is.
Yeah.
Because that's where, like Destri was talking about earlier, a foundation to go back to. If you don't have that foundation, you're not going to find it when you start increasing speed.
Right.
So it's as advanced as we are in this industry, we still got a long ways to go. I feel like we're just scratching the tip of the iceberg. I just feel like there's so much more to get.
I agree. And I think, I just appreciate your willingness to teach, and to not feel like these are just secrets that you need to hold to yourself, because that's really truly the long-term goal, is to leave a legacy that, you're not going to live forever, but leave a legacy that will. And so, you know, Phil, I feel like you're on the right track in that, teaching others to do what you do, you know, because there's lots of people that need what we do, whether it's the horse training side of it or the physical therapy and the rehab side of it. But we really need to help others learn to do what we do, and to be able to pass that on as we go through life. So thank you for serving that way.
Well, thanks. I mean, it's, you know, and he's passed now, but you know, I learned a lot at one clinic, of the first clinic I ever went to at Ray Hunt's, and I still, there are things that I talk about that Ray said during that week. And you know, to me, and of course he doesn't get paid for that, you know, it doesn't make his family any money really, you know, but at the same time, you know, just in, I look back at just 3 or 4 different things he told me that, I mean, changed my life, you know. And we all have that opportunity. We all have that opportunity. And, you know, and it's just such a feel good business. You know, it's, to me, it's like tithing. I just feel like anytime I can give back, it's part of my tithe. That's and there were times when I didn't have any money to tithe. So I mean, all I had was what I could give back, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're in a great industry, and the future, to me, the future couldn't be brighter. For what you're doing, I think that there is so much potential, because everybody's figured out one small thing can make a huge difference, right? If you're, especially on the, anytime there, anytime you're in a discipline where you have to shut the clock off, you better pay attention to your body. Because just like you were saying, Destri, that the feel that I give my horses is coming from what kind of condition am I in, physically and mentally. And it's not something you get and just get to keep. You better do something to maintain it and try to progress it. Because like I said, I feel like I'm either going this way or this way. There's no in between. Anybody that says, oh, I'm right here, anybody that thinks they're just floating along right here, they're headed down. Just my opinion.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you sharing your knowledge as well, because that's what it takes to grow the industry and keep things moving forward, is just people that have figured things out and are willing to share it with others, instead of worrying like, you know, you hold that to yourself because you don't want somebody else to know it because they might be competition. But like you said, we've talked about it on here before. If you're just constantly worried about competing with people, you're not going to grow and the profession's not going to grow. But if you're more worried on sharing your knowledge and collaborating with people, then that's when a lot of cool stuff happens. And you know, you said you can only start so many in a year. Well, we can only help so many people in a year, and there has to be other people. Right. And I live in Oklahoma. Becky lives in Nebraska. There's people all over the United States that need help. And so being able to collaborate with other professionals across the United States and world just in general, so everyone has an opportunity to get the help they need, that's just so important.
Yeah, and I just really think there's a trend towards that, to where people are starting to realize. I know in my industry, like I said, I never planned on doing the mentorships. That just kind of, you know, that just kind of grew out of some requests. But when I did the first couple mentorships and we started covering all phases, and I seen the changes in people, I was like, oh, this is needed. I mean, when people are hugging your neck and got tears in their eyes when they're leaving, and you've had 5 days with them, and you're like, oh my gosh, that this is crazy. Well, that because here's the thing. We gotta, the everything that changes, all the improvements start within us, right? Physically and mentally, right? And I'm a big believer. You know, I'm a big believer that you have to include the physical side to get the mental side. Big
I
believer
agree.
in that. So
I agree. Well, we need to let you get going, and we appreciate you spending time with us. And any closing thoughts?
no, I tell you what, I appreciate you having me on. And shoot, I want to get with both of you and dive into this a little bit and set up a program that, like from my deals, I say my deal's different, but really it's probably real similar to most people's deals. I mean, I've got a little setup here at the house right here in my office to where I work out, but I need to be able to do some things on the road. And obviously, I got a knee issue and I got a shoulder issue, and I need to, I want to not only maintain, but get stronger. Flexibility is a big deal. Nobody,
Mm-hmm.
nobody at 60 is more flexible than when they are at 30. Okay. That doesn't happen. Right. So,
Mm-hmm.
just sometime here in the future, let's do that. And I'd like to get something set up with you.
All
Yeah.
right.
Well, thanks for having me on, boy. I appreciate it. I've really enjoyed it. I was looking forward to this conversation.
Well, same here. So, Destri, I'm going to let you hit the tagline.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and thank you, Phil, for coming on here. We really appreciate it, and let your health be the pivot point to your success.